Welcome and thank you so very much for being here. Julie and I are honored to have you for another episode of The Nonprofit Show. Today we have with us Karen Cooks. Karen's a consultant out of California. And as you just heard, if you just heard for the Green Room Chatter, she's got lots of great things to talk about. And today's conversation is about cost marketing versus business development. So Karen, before we dive into this conversation with you, we of course want to make sure that our viewers and our listeners know who they're looking at or listening to. Thank you to Julia Patrick for being here and creating this wonderful platform of conversation. Julia is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I'm Jarrett Ransom, her personal nonprofit nerd, but everyone's nonprofit nerd, because I guarantee you there's enough nerdiness inside of this brain to go around. But I'm also the CEO of my own consulting firm, the Raven Group, and really honored to serve alongside Julia each and every day as we continue to march forward with the Nonprofit Show. Thanks so much to our continued presenting sponsors. Those would be Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Fundraising Academy, Nonprofit Nerd, Your Part-Time Controller, Staffing Boutique, and the Nonprofit Thought Leader. Many of these companies have been with us since March of 2020. So you've heard us say this before, and we'll say it again because we're very prideful of this. Again, thanks to our sponsors. We're coming up on our 600th episode. So I should check today's episode to see exactly which one we're in, but we're pretty far along and really excited to continue these conversations like the one that we're going to have now with Karen Cooks. But if you missed any of our episodes, or you want to go back and listen because the news was just too good, you can find us on Roku, YouTube, Fire TV, as well as Vimeo. And if you're a podcaster like I am, you can queue up the Nonprofit Show wherever you stream your podcast. So Karen, you've been waiting so very patiently. I know that's hard because it's hard for me to do that. But I want to say welcome and thank you so very much for spending some of your time with us today on the show.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. There's nothing I love more really than nerding out about nonprofits and all the data things. And I'm a fan of the Nonprofit Show. I won't lie. I won't lie. But you know that. And then last night I actually was, have I missed any really good ones that I want to see? And so now I'm all about dog fooding.
Oh,
Right?
Thank you. You know, Rhett, I have had in the less than 20, not quite 24 hours since that's been up. I'm amazed at the people that have reached back out. And yeah, it's a great topic. So thank you. Thank you.
All about the dog fooding. And I was really happy to see Allison Fine had recently joined you on the show. Big fan there too. Look, we're all just like fangirling over smart people doing smart things and having an impact as they move along.
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me.
Well, Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you serve the nonprofit sector?
So currently, I am a business development director in the Western states. Well, actually, the greater Los Angeles market for the American Heart Association. So that's a new role for me. And it's really interesting to be back in-house after many years as an external consultant, taking that big picture view. It's interesting how they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, all of that sort of consulting hat. And I say to them all the time, it's hard for me to take off my consulting hat to stay kind of in my lane. But it turns out that my lane of business development really is much more broad. It's a broader lane than I think some other focus areas. So it's a nice fit for me. And I feel like I can bring a lot from my previous experiences back into an in-house role. So that's where I'm at. And I'm still, I have an external client also on the side as a consultant with a company called Song Hero. They're very forward thinking. So go and have a look at them. And that's where I'm at. Been in LA for for 30 years. So, we were talking in the green room about community and coming back to community. I feel like I have dual citizenship between my roots in Chicago and that neck of the woods and LA. So I'm not bilingual, but I am bicidial. I'm bi-metropolitan. And
I love that. Well, and as we talk about, cause marketing versus business development, that does kind of straddle both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you can start us off in this conversation. We always say to our guests and to ourselves, we have to remind ourselves, Julia, that these conversations go by so very quickly. But let's start us off by saying, like, what exactly is cause marketing? And for those of you watching, you'll see on the screen that it says cause marketing is a lighter weight activation. So kick us off, Karen, with just cause marketing in general. How do you define this?
Yeah, I think if I were going to distill it down to one single thing, it comes down to it's a time perspective, right? So to my mind, cause marketing is time constrained. If I'm in a role in the private sector and I want to partner with an organization in the social sector, I'm likely looking at a shorter time period. There is a cutoff date, there's a start date and a cutoff date. Yeah. My commitment of both time, talent, treasure is all going to be, for lack of a better word right now, truncated. It's not less valuable, but it's truncated, and it's truncated most specifically by time. So when I think of lighter weight activations, I think of a corporate partner in the private sector who says, we'd like to be in business with you, but we want to get our feet wet. Maybe we don't really know how this goes yet. We're counting on you to help us get there, to help us, to help guide the way. Maybe we don't have the financial resources to really invest in your mission in a deeper way, but we'll look toward doing that. So I think it is lighter weight in those ways. I think it's a nice entry point also for organizations who are looking at expanding their CSR. I mean, I think oftentimes we can look at cause marketing tied very specifically to CSR goals, employee engagement, how well and how deep are you touching the community, all those sorts of data points that you might put as a private sector organization in your CSR social impact report. It's the reverse side of the coin. But again, distilling it down, I think when I think of it as a lighter weight activation, it is lighter weight in that it is tied specifically to duration, and then that trickles down. Duration, what are the other resources you can contribute during that time period? So it's lighter overall. And I think your impact overall, by the way, is lighter.
Okay, I've got to ask this question, because would you have given Jarrett this same definition before the pandemic? Because a lot of what you said, I think, resonates to where we are with the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle, employees wanting to know more about how their employers are engaging. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. For me personally, I think I would have.
Okay.
But I'm coming from the other side of the equation when I look at it, right? I'm coming from that side. And also, to be fair, Jarrett, you know this, I went back at a certain age to get a master's degree, focus solely on nonprofit leadership and management. So that was all part of my conversation as we were heading, or the way that I was thinking going into the pandemic. And so I think pandemic conversations for me amplified where I already was in my thinking, and then I was watching it expand. So for me personally, I think, yes, I would have defined it in this manner, but I think the ship is getting bigger and it's all moving out to sea now. Yeah. I'm going to use a whole bunch of bad metaphors.
No, this today. Is great. It's great. No, Jarrett, I interrupted you, but I just was so intrigued by Karen's response. I had to jump in there.
Well, and I want to just make sure that everyone knows, because, I feel like the entire world, not just our sector, is acronym soup. So for those of you that are scratching your head going, what is CSR, right? That's corporate social responsibility. So if we, because I'm sure I'll say it too, CSR, if we, say that again throughout the course of the conversation, just keep in your head, that's corporate social responsibility. So Karen, I love that definition. And I would agree with you. I think, Julia, that's how I saw it going into the pandemic.
Okay.
And I would agree that it's really just, elevated to a whole new level of what that looks like. I've seen so many companies become even more engaged with nonprofits because they see this as an opportunity to play a role in the solution, right, of the community problem. So let's talk now about, this halo effect, because we talk about, halo effect when it comes to, corporations or funders, or kind of like, look who's on board. Don't you also want to be on board? But I want you, Karen, to talk to us about the warm glow of the halo effect. What does that mean?
So now I think we have to dig in a little deeper. Are you thinking that the warm glow of the halo effect, that it's the warm glow on the private sector partner of the alliance, or the warm glow that the nonprofit might get?
I think it's a good question, because I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, right.
And we don't address that because I think we undervalue ourselves on the nonprofit side.
Yes, I agree.
And
so, right. And so when I think about the halo effect, I also think about the language we use in terms of, like we were talking about the word soup. If we take the word cause marketing away and we make it a cause partnership, is it a cause alliance? Yeah. I'm such a geek about this stuff that actually gives me a little lump in my throat, because to me, that really expands what the relationship actually is. It's not cause marketing, right? It's an alliance. And when you have an alliance, then you have a halo effect that is it's a golden hour on both sides of the party, right? That's how I feel about it. So to your point, Julia, I think the social sector does itself a disservice when it thinks it's not bringing anything to the alliance. That couldn't be more untrue. It is the very reason that your private sector partners want to partner with you. You bring community. You bring the knowledge of what it is to be boots on the ground. There is nobody better than the social sector, not even the public sector, who can deliver programs and services to the community in the way that it does, because it's already there. It understands. It's data. Yes, it's all the things, but it's also human. You're already there. If I'm a private sector partner in this alliance, I am getting a crap ton of halo. I need sunscreen. I just made that up.
I was going to say, is there sunscreen for halo effect?
There should be. I love what you said, because I think that one word, partnership or alliance, it is magical, because it turns the sense of value, and it kind of forces us in the nonprofit sector to step up and to say, yeah, we do have value, and yeah, we are making you look good.
Yeah.
And I love to, changing that language that you just did, Karen, it gave me a similar lump in my throat, thinking that it's moving from transactional to relationship.
Yes.
And a true partnership.
Yeah.
Yes, all the things. Yes.
All the things.
Yes. And so that would be another differentiator, right? As we move maybe the conversation from cause marketing or cause alliance, which is, more time-based, it's, time sensitive, and you look at business development, that's a more, it's not that the prior is not strategic, but there are more strategic opportunities to build that alliance in deeper ways with deeper roots. It goes back to what you were just saying. So yeah.
Interesting. I love this conversation. And I've got to say, Karen, at this time of the year, we are looking at these relationships for Q4 and in this push at the end of the year and the holidays. This is such a great conversation for right now. Such a great conversation.
For me, when I think about, moving into that other lane of business development from the nonprofit side of the equation, I really do think it's important to steward and cultivate, just as you would with an individual donor, cultivate and steward your corporate partners. Yes. Right? If somebody comes in because they're getting their feet wet and they really don't have a clear understanding of what the needs are on the nonprofit side of the equation that they are going to bring their resources to, right? Everybody's bringing something to the table. Now they're engaged. They could continue doing another program the same way the next year, same length of time, maybe a little longer, maybe put a different sheen on it, maybe they align themselves with a different focus area or service line in your organization. All fair. They're still family. They're still doing the good work. But what if that relationship expands and grows and you do bring greater levels of the time, talent, and yes, the treasure, because that's what's required to keep everything moving forward. So I think that in a lot of instances, I think people miss that opportunity to cultivate and steward their corporate partners into deeper roles, into, let's talk about board roles. Let's talk about volunteer leadership. Then we're talking about another nuance. Now we're talking about boundary spanning.
I'm curious, Karen, because I just helped an organization, disseminate a donor survey. And so it was sent to all supporters, all donors, all constituents. I use those three words often very interchangeably.
Yeah.
And, the information that came back from the individuals was essentially, we want to hear more client success stories. And the information coming back from companies was essentially saying, you do a great job with the information you share. We don't want anything less, and we also don't want anything more. So I'm curious, because of my experience with this, Karen, how you would suggest we engage with these corporate social responsibility leaders in sharing the impact and continuing that stewardship and cultivation. What would you say in that arena?
So I guess I want to clarify the question. So are they looking for, social data and information they can include in their own social impact reports? Am I understanding that? Or
well, so this was the organization, the nonprofit actually did the donor survey rather. And so, we were soliciting from our stakeholders. So I'm curious, with that information, how you would suggest that any organization reach out to corporate social responsibility leaders and, community members to say, hey, how can we best form this alliance?
So first thing, and I would say this of any relationship, you got to put your listening ears on.
Yeah.
Right. Bring your listening ears. I think that, and I'm sort of riffing here, it's such a great question to think about.
That's what we're here for. Riff away.
Yeah. I wonder, so you put your listening ears and you come with some ideas, because that's what we do. Right? We have some ideas. Let us tell you about this service line. Let us tell you about this focus area. Maybe you're unaware that we have changed the way that we work in this particular area. As I'm saying this out loud, even as we go along, I'm realizing that there are often times when I will say to someone, I'm not sure but we have a thing over here that does this, and it serves that. Right? Did you know?
It could be as simple as that, because, acronym soup or whatever, like we all have our lingo, and it's like, why don't you know that? Of course you know that. And Julie, I'm thinking of one of our very large shelters in our community, and they've really been known as, this is the place where you go to get a hot meal, and it's like, they do so much more than that. And so I really think, it's on us to say, did you know we have this thing?
Yeah, but I think you also have to be with respect to the listeners. I think you have to maybe enter those conversations knowing maybe that there is already a gap, and not like lying in wait, but sort of assuming that there's a gap in information and that it's our job to remedy that. So when you have the opening and you see somebody just sort of dug their heels in on a certain area that they're familiar with because you're a name brand mission in your community, but to your point, but do you know?
Yeah.
But do you? Because did you know this thing? And by the way, maybe that thing is somewhat smaller, actually, even for your own organization, and you're looking to make it grow. And now you have found a potential partner to help develop that. But that also goes back to what we were starting to touch on, the boundary spanning. right? Why are we bringing corporate partners into relationship with us, right? It's not just for their private sector dollars. It's also for their acumen, just as we are bringing our acumen to their community, right? To their service. The boundary spanning, I know we talk about that when we talk about building boards. We talk about our volunteer leaders, but those volunteer leaders also exist within our corporate partner alliances. And I think that identifying what their strengths are, either from an organizational perspective or an individual executive partner in that you're working with, bring that acumen to the table. How can it help build that new service area that's smaller that they didn't know about, or an existing one? But I don't know, does that feel right to you?
No, I think that's very helpful. And one of the things the three of us talked about in our green room chatter before we went live was about how cause marketing, it's a moving target. It continues to evolve and change, as does the CSR, the corporate social responsibility models of our corporations and our alliances. But I'm curious, because we said it straddles cause marketing, it straddles business development. Let's move into the business development side of this conversation. Do you believe, Karen, that cause marketing is in fact business development for our nonprofits?
I think cause marketing is business development for the private sector.
Okay.
And I say that because it's an opportunity for a nonprofit to link arms in all the ways we've talked about. But I think if we're talking about is cause marketing business development for the social sector? No, it is intended primarily as a driver for the private sector. In my opinion.
Julia's hair on fire. I saw
it. My hair is on fire. And as I like to say, I don't have a lot of hair to lose. So this is a big moment. Yeah. You know what? I love that you called this out because it even amplifies the nature of the notion of partnership and alliance. So I appreciate you saying this.
Yeah. It's not that it doesn't have value.
Oh, yeah,
for the social sector, but is it driving revenue for us? Maybe yes, not even a maybe. Sure, it is. But when we're talking about business development, we're really talking about capacity building. We're talking about sustainability. Are we not?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Right. And so I don't think that a single program of cause marketing is the answer for especially a smaller well, let me take that back. It might be a really solid answer for a smaller organization. If you are a large, NGO or a brand name national organization, your real revenue is coming from much bigger alliances, much bigger sorts of plays. You also have grants. You have another number of other opportunities and pathways to meet your annual goal. And by the way, happy end of fiscal year to most nonprofits who are ending today, because speaking of hair on fire.
Speaking of hair on fire.
How many hours do we have to go? Right?
I know.
It's that. But yeah, I think, without belaboring it too much, I do think that the revenue opportunities and or just the general benefits around cause marketing as a specific phrase really lean in. I think they favor the private sector, because for my money and my time, and time is money, I'm not going to say no. As a nonprofit leader, I'm not going to say no to partnering in that way, because again, then you also have the stewardship and cultivation opportunities. Once a program like that is successful and everybody's happy and you have the halo and the warm glow and nobody's hair is on fire, you can move into more meaningful things. But I do think, again, not to belabor it too much, I think it weighs more heavily on in favor of the private sector.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to recognize that. I really do. And I think if you can understand that, then it helps you and your development team and your C-suite understand what resources you're going to put towards this and how you're going to value it.
Right.
Value these relationships.
The value.
question, a curveball question. So we mentioned CSR, and literally that stands for corporate social responsibility. But how are small businesses playing a part in this cause marketing? Because to me, I also see a lot of small businesses, family-owned businesses that have a very large propensity to philanthropy and being part of their community and being civically engaged. So is it only for the big dogs, Karen, or is it for like any company that wishes to have a component of impact in the social sector?
I think any company,
Yeah.
anybody, any company that has any company that it's made a home in any community of any size, anywhere in the country. If you think about it, you've already been connected to your community in probably some philanthropic ways without putting the big philanthropy, banner over it. I mean, I think it's rare that a small privately owned family company doesn't have a connection in some way to some mission.
Sure.
It may be to a larger health related issue. It may be, but more often than not, my experience is that those companies really tie directly back to their own communities. So you live in a small community, that should not stop you as a nonprofit from linking arms with your private sector friends. You're all living in the same place, trying to elevate everybody's life, trying to make things better for everyone. To me, that's not even a curveball. That's a
Right.
yes.
It's a line drive. Yeah.
That's a why are you not?
Well, all of this
This has been
conversation
great.
has been marvelous. I'm going to use that word because I heard you say that you loved it earlier. And for those of you that have also enjoyed having this conversation with Karen Cooks, I want to make sure that you know how to reach out to her, KarenCooks.com. She's also very involved on LinkedIn, so you can find her there as well. Karen, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, going back to school to get your degree in nonprofit management and leadership, and for dedicating your time, to the sector, and for sharing your valuable time and expertise with us today. Thank you.
I've loved every second. Call me back anytime.
We will. I have a feeling.
I think we will. I think
Yes.
we will. Well, everybody, I'm Julia Patrick, again, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I've been joined today with my partner in crime, Jarrett Ransom, the nonprofit nerd herself. We want to make sure that we extend a tremendous amount of gratitude to all of our presenting sponsors who've been with us in this conversation today. Bloomerang American Nonprofit Academy, your part-time controller, nonprofit nerd, fundraising academy, staffing boutique, and nonprofit thought leader. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful conversation to have. Again, Karen, I've loved your comments, and I think you spurred me on to understand that we need to spend more time elevating the value of these relationships from the nonprofit side. So thank you for doing that. It's really profound. It's really profound. Hey, everybody, as we are starting to wrap up a very busy week, a very busy year for so many of our nonprofits, oh my gosh, please remember our mantra: to stay well so you can do well.